The fastest way to the truth is philosophy. It's the easiest way to the truth. Um, so it's not that hard to figure this out. Um, the reason you might pretend for the sake of another person is different than what they actually are. And to try and belittle, come out with snobby attitudes to the world and say, well, that's not how the world is, when we all clearly see it. This is the way the world is. It doesn't matter if you have an IQ of 70 or an IQ of 130. It doesn't matter if you have a PhD in biology, 10 or 10 PhDs. Philosophy doesn't give a shit about your perspective. And so when I see a philosopher ask a question, what is a woman, and they don't know how to answer that, I'm pissed off. Hello. Or actually not pissed off, but frustrated at the philosopher who has the tools and utility to display reason. They challenge theists and stuff based on, things that they see in the world. Well, it refuses to see something that's obvious. A woman is a human being, or a human in biological language, Homo sapien in evolutionary biology language. That is a female. It's an adult human being. That is a female. The same for a man. A man is an adult male human being. This is the truth. This is in the definition. If you go into language, right? So we got a brief philosophical observation of the distinction between man and woman. If you go to, which means that it's not just a social construct, it is the definitional subset of age, adult, general age area, a state, and sex. It is that. So when a woman gives birth, they become a mother. This is not, again, a social construct. They are a mother definitionally because they are an adult female woman who gave birth. A woman who gives birth is a mother. And even anybody who's eligible for birth, so somebody who is below the age at which we would consider a woman. So a teenage girl gives birth. They are a mother. So a mother is a female human being. So because there's two qualifiers, an adult human being or a less than adult human being who is a female that gives birth, those two qualifiers are a mother. So it's not a social construct. Those two people are mothers. So it goes back to a hard, objective language that is used. A female human being gives birth. That's a mother. And if she's paired with a partner, that person is the dad, if they're a male human being. From the beginning, they're the father. This is not a fluidity. This is not the pretend. This is the objective of the language. Every person has a mother and a father. So your world breaks down when you're a trans person because you're an adult male human being who wants to be a female human being. You're a man who wants to be a woman. The world breaks down for you because you cannot be something you aren't. You can be a male human being who believes they are a woman human being trapped inside a male body. And for simplicity, you can be a man who believes they are a woman trapped inside a man's body. Objectively, you just can't be the opposite. Your identity, cannot be the opposite. But there's, let's say, a miracle. Silver lining comes into, like, we have the proper everything can be reassigned surgery. So you take a person who is transgender, who is a woman, and a person who is transgender, who is a man. And we won't be able to do this unless we first accept the fact that they are these two things. If we cannot accept the fact that they are these two things, we cannot even do this surgery. Otherwise, because we don't exist in reality, the surgery would be impossible to proceed with because it would be seen as too much. But it would be seen as a greater harm than gender reassignment surgery, even though gender reassignment surgery is permanent death of the genitalia. Let's suffice to say, there are a myriad of problems with the person who believes they are the opposite sex. But if you were to take their brain, and brain reassignment surgery is a real thing, it does happen, you could take the woman with the male brain, supposedly, if they have, and not all of them have this issue where it's a physical problem, but let's say it's a physical brain problem. You could take the male brain out, you take the female brain out, and then you can't just say that there aren't female brains. You can't say there aren't male brains. See, the surgery would be impossible unless you can accept the terms of reality. You can take the man's brain out of the woman, if it is a man's brain, and then you could take the female's brain out of the trans man. And you can swap them. So this surgery would be impossible, and it can be eligible for everyone, but it would be impossible to do. That would actually, other than the chemical and the therapy and all the other modern technology we have, would actually solve this issue. That you could actually put a person who believes they are a woman inside a woman's body and a person who believes they are a man inside a man's body, instead of this fiasco and spending millions of dollars to be something that you can't be because of your body. Your body is a limitation. You have to accept that you're not your body, perhaps, but you live in your body. Like, the biggest points of personal identity is the history that came with your body. And so you have to get rid of your body to be something you're not, because you'll actually be something you're not. To get rid of the male part, you have to get rid of all that makes you a man. And if all that makes you a man is the entire body other than the brain, the one thing that doesn't have chromosomes in it, then you're going to have to switch bodies. This is also a soul argument. This is where people say, well, I was a female soul or whatever. And I'm not saying that the souls exist. I'm not saying they don't exist. I'm just saying, for the philosophical aspect of the mental issue, that solution cannot exist without first accepting the reality that people cannot transition with the bodies they were born with. It is impossible. The only thing that is possible with the body that you're born with is the aspect of pretend. How far can you pretend? Can you fool me into making me believe that you are a woman if you were in fact born a man? If you cannot do that, you have not succeeded in fooling me. And maybe you don't care about my opinion, but if the goal is to be the thing that you're not, to be the shapeshifter, then the people you want to fool is the people who give you the most honest criticism, because the people who don't give you the most honest criticism don't like you. They're lying to you. You clearly don't look like a woman, and they're saying that for your feeling's sake, that yeah, you do. And then you're crying, wondering why you can't find a partner. You know, if the goal is I want to feel comfortable with my own skin, and surrounding yourself between positive people who make you feel comfortable in your own skin, then you're not truly a trans person. You just want to be around people who accept you for what you are, whatever you are. And these genders go further. Husband is a person married to someone. And even with the advent of gay marriage, including that philosophically, it's a man married to a man, or a woman married to a woman. This still embodies gender. You got two wives, you got two husbands, or you got a husband and a wife. It is a man married to another person. That's a husband. And in Christian theology, of course, it's the oldest theology for English, not the oldest theology in the world. Of course, the oldest theologies in the world go back before Samaria, and they go into Hinduism and all kinds of stuff, Wiccanism. You have to understand that that's embedded in the bedrock of gender. Some of these theologies, because of the creation of language. And in the beginnings of the creation of language, you go back far enough, language was masculine and feminine. And you have to recognize the traits of masculinity and femininity. Is something toxic masculinity or just masculine? Is it masculine to yell at somebody? And sometimes it's wrong to yell at somebody, and sometimes it's the right thing to do in order to get somebody's attention, or to punch somebody. It's the right thing to do. Legally, though, it's not the legal thing to do, because the laws and morals don't align. The laws and morality do not align. So we said that it might be better to put justice on the shoulder of the government rather than on each individual, because we all have different preferences for what is moral, right? There might be an objective moral, and it's not the government, and it's not each individual's opinion. But because we don't know what's objectively moral, even though there might be an objective moral, we put those laws on the shoulders of government. There are things that we could figure is objectively immoral, for sure, but not all things. So first, murder, we could figure that's objectively moral, because there's an objective tense to murder. There's an objective outcome. There's objective loss. There's objective value loss. There's things that happen in nature that are objective, that aren't good for society or the person. And that's another thing that has to be recognized. If you go the route of being an individual, which I have, and you go that route, you have to recognize that you can't even just call groups like wrong. You can't say that groups in general don't exist. A group is a body of people, a body of individuals. The individuals all exist and the group exists. The group exists on the principle of the body of people, just like if you were to go outside wherever you live and you see 12 deer together. Well, it's not like the 12 deer don't exist individually, and it's not like the 12 deer don't exist as a group. They do exist as a group. It's called a herd. And the 12 deer would travel together, would mate together, would intermingle together, and all kinds of stuff. This is a family. It is the minimum of a group, is a family. It is a man, a woman, and a baby, perhaps. That is the smallest group you can have. A family unit. We can't say that families don't exist because they're tied to the objective language that I spoke about earlier. Because the family exists, then groups exist. Because groups exist, then governments exist. Whether we find them moral or not, whether we dislike them or not, the state exists. And what makes the state exist, objectively, is the ability to seize persons who cross the border and deport them, or the ability to seize persons who cross the border and imprison them, or the ability to seize persons who cross the border and shoot at them. The border was an invisible line, but the equator is also an invisible line, and the equator exists. The axis of the earth is an invisible line, and the axis of the earth exists. The earth spins. As a result of that spin, the earth has an axis. That line exists. It's not simply subjective. There is a North Pole. Based on the basis of the earth spinning, on the basis of the magnetic field of the earth, there's a North Pole with objective outcomes. So as long as you have objective outcomes, you can create things that are invisible. Just like you can create things that are tangible, that you can hold. For instance, you can create a fence. You can create a car. You can create the phone. Not you particularly, but people can. And we don't call phones subjective. We don't call phones subjective. We don't call the internet subjective, even though we can't see the internet in the air. Some of the internet's in the ground. Lots of the internet is on servers. But it could be in the air. It could be in crystals. It could be anywhere. We don't call it subjective because we can't see it. There's objective outcomes, like the communication between my phone and the satellite. Because of this, we can find things that are real, that have an objective to it. For instance, you might think that personal space is subjective. Somebody's personal space is subjective. It's beyond just, did you know that everybody's personal space is the same? Did you know that everybody has an electric field? And when you're within that electric field, you're in everybody's personal space. So, objectively, when you cross the electric field of somebody else, you're in their personal space. And the majority of people feel uncomfortable in that space, but that space exists, is what I'm saying. Things that we think are subjective, we are willing to shut off as subjective, might not be. Just like gender. It just takes 2 minutes to observe the reality of language and the reality of how we use it and the reality of bodies and what it refers to and what is objective. It's all objective.